Hi, I'm Dr. Jack West, medical oncologist at Swedish Cancer Institute in Seattle, Washington. A few weeks ago, we got some disappointing news about a clinical trial called START that looked at patients with locally advanced or stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer who had received chemo and radiation and had shown a response or at least stable disease and continued to do pretty well, and who were then randomized to receive an immune-based therapy called Stimuvax, also known as BLP-25, or a placebo. Now, this agent, Stimuvax, had looked very promising in an earlier and smaller phase 2 trial that led there to be a great deal of excitement about this larger phase 3 study that, if positive for a survival benefit, would presumably lead to it being approved by the FDA and other regulatory bodies in the world, and it being a new treatment for lung cancer, potentially with fewer side effects than standard chemotherapy or many other things we might try. And in fact, there was just an incredible amount of hope and optimism, even irrational exuberance, I would say, about this treatment approach prior to these results being released. And this excitement was seen in the medical community, certainly in patients and caregivers, but also, frankly, in the financial community, where there was just an incredible focus on this trial and its potential to have a new treatment that would presumably have big implications for the sponsor company. So this led to just an incredible amount of attention on this trial and really a lot of presumption that this study would come out positive. In fact, about a year ago, there was a bit of information released about the trial that the patients who were involved, both on the placebo arm and on the Stimuvax arm, had a median survival that exceeded what we could possibly expect to see for patients with this stage of cancer. And this led to an incredible amount of speculation that the trial was going to be positive, even though the survival results they were talking about weren't divided based on patients who had received the placebo or the immune-based therapy. And at that time, I raised the cautionary point that this was very likely a product of selection bias, that these were not the same patients who were involved in other trials for locally advanced disease, because the earlier trials, the ones where they used their benchmark numbers from, included all sorts of patients just as they were starting on chemo and radiation. But in the START trial, this only included patients who were doing well after they received chemo and radiation. So this essentially skimmed off the patients who were least likely to do well. And anytime you work with a narrower population that includes far more patients likely to do well anyway, you're going to end up with very different results that are going to make everything look better. And that's, unfortunately, I believe, what they're going to see. Now, I should clarify that we haven't received any detailed results about the study. We will get that soon, I believe, in the coming months. But what can we say right now? Well, first off, it's certainly disappointing that this trial was negative, and I think that it's important to bear in mind that you need to still have a cautious, skeptical view rather than presume that all the hype about a trial is going to be positive. Even when news sources are talking about breakthroughs, the fact is they are in the business of generating a lot of hype and excitement. It's really an entertainment business, and very often the journalists who are talking about these therapies don't have a real medical background to speak with any kind of critical eye. So I think that unfortunately leaves many of the doctors in the unenviable position of needing to be a wet blanket talking about these things, trying to dampen the enthusiasm, at least until we get enough data to really justify that kind of optimism. So another question that comes up is, if this trial with Stimuvax is negative, Should we now presume that other trials with different immune-based treatments are also going to be a disappointment? There are several out there that are still high profile and that we should be getting results from in the next year or two. These include a trial called MAGRITE that looks at a vaccine against MAGE-A3 in patients with early-stage resected non-small cell lung cancer after their surgery. There's also a study with a drug called Lucanix. This is an immune-based treatment approach that is being looked at as a maintenance strategy for patients with advanced disease, advanced non-small cell lung cancer, who have had a response or at least stable disease after first-line treatment and then are given either Lucanix as this vaccine or immune-based therapy or placebo. Both of these trials should have results delivered in the next few years. And then we have earlier studies being done that are not yet as far along with anti-PD-1 and anti-PD-L1 that have been discussed in other settings on the GRACE website. And these are certainly very promising. They really have demonstrated some good activity, but we're still talking about results in a few dozen patients, and that's really still too early to draw any firm conclusions. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be optimistic, we shouldn't be hopeful. We just need to be cautious and know that these early results don't necessarily mean that they will translate to a proven benefit in a larger setting. So I hope to be able to come back and talk about the remarkable success of one of these or multiple of these immune-based therapies in the coming months or years, and potentially have them available as real useful tools in our armamentarium. In fact, I'm truly optimistic that one or more of these will become a real demonstrated proven therapy for us. But we didn't see that with Stimuvax, and I think that just reminds us that we need to be cautious about presuming anything about larger trials just based on phase 1 or phase 2 studies with a few dozen patients. Take care. I hope that helps. Bye-bye.